Launching as a soft reboot of the Metroid franchise in 2004, Zero Mission is a ground-up remake of the first Metroid game on NES, utilizing the engine from Metroid Fusion released 2 years prior, while maintaining the pseudo-open world of Super Metroid from '94. Honestly, I had no idea how much of this game truly was optional until making this video. It is way more open than it appears on your first playthrough. And yet, despite that fact, this game has far fewer glitches than even Metroid Fusion before it. I'm not going to sugarcoat it, guys. Zero Mission is the tightest game I have ever covered. There is practically nothing to exploit here. Don't get me wrong, it has glitches in general, just not many you'd actually want to do. That being said, I did find a few things to pique your interest, and what I've got planned for this playthrough is going to be anything but standard fare. If that sounds interesting, suit up. It's time to break Metroid Zero Mission. This video is sponsored by boot.dev, what is possibly the best online resource for learning how to program anywhere on the internet. It's not an online course in a traditional sense, it's more of a game, and by completing programming quests you unlock gear and XP to level up your account and advance on the competitive leaderboard. I'm not kidding, this class is a full RPG. It's self-paced, so play whenever you want to play, there's no pressure. But you'll be shocked at the amount of real-world skill you pick up when you do. Boot.dev teaches both the Python and Go programming languages, and I bet if you know absolutely nothing about programming, you still recognize the name Python. That's because that language has absolutely exploded in popularity in recent years, being used for developing mobile apps, PC programs, server-side stuff, and yes, even video games. So, if you're ready to put your RPG skills to work in your real life, click the link in the description and use my code Phobia to get 25% off your first payment for boot.dev. That's 25% your first month, or 25% your first year, whichever you prefer. And finally, thanks to boot.dev for helping to fund the production of this video. When we start a new game, we have the option of playing in easy, normal, or hard mode, assuming you've beaten the game already once before. This choice actually matters a lot for our playthrough. Aside from being, well, harder, the biggest difference between the difficulty settings is that missile tanks grant 5 missiles each on easy and normal, but only 2 on hard. If you're playing on the North American version like I am, it's impossible to beat the game with only 1 missile tank on hard, since there is a section in the Space Pirate mothership that requires you to fire 3 missiles in sequence without a means of picking up more in between. In this video, I want to showcase just how much of this game can be skipped by completing it with the fewest upgrades possible. That means only 1 missile tank, and by extension, means we're playing on normal. We gain control of Samus and BRINSTAR with nothing but the ability to jump and fire a short beam, same as Metroid on NES. But without picking up at least 1 upgrade, we are locked to only the first 3 rooms of the game. Surprising no one, it is impossible to complete the game without at least collecting Morph Ball. So we return to the starting area and go left to do just that, setting our current collection percentage to 1%. But just how low can we keep it? In the next room, we jump up several platforms before reaching this obstacle, which is meant to serve as the check, ensuring that you collect Long Beam. Without bombs or missiles, the only way to pass through this tunnel is to collect Long Beam and shoot out the blocks at the far end that our current beam can't reach. Long Beam is found just a bit further ahead, but collecting it would add an additional percentage to our collection total, something I'd like to avoid at all costs. Thankfully, there is a developer-intended skip we can use to proceed without it. This one is hardly complicated, considering how few abilities Samus actually possesses this early on. You simply climb above the Morph Ball tunnel and jump while firing down to destroy these hidden breakable blocks and gain access to the blue door without using the Morph Ball tunnel in the first place. As I said, this is an intended skip, but I do plan on marking both intended and unintended sequence breaks throughout the video for the benefit of those that may not know about them. In the very next room, we are immediately face to face with a red door that can only be opened with missiles. Spoiler, we need those. The first missile tank in the game is found at the bottom of BRINSTAR, which we descend and collect without issue. As stated before, normal is the highest difficulty that still grants us the 5 missiles per tank, meaning that we can collect just this one, adding only a single percentage to our collection total, while still having the 3 necessary to make it through the Space Pirate mothership in the post-game. So just in case it hasn't fully sunken in yet, yes, we now have to complete the entire game with only 5 missiles. If we proceed further right toward the entrance to NORFAIR, we are soon blocked by tiles that can only be destroyed with bombs, so we have no choice but to turn around and go back the way we came. Soon we are interrupted by... Actually, I don't know what this thing's name is. Let's call him Wormy. Anyway, Wormy dies and turns into Charge Beam. There is no Charge Beam checks in Zero Mission, so picking it up wouldn't change the path of the playthrough in any way other than increasing our item collection total. So wave goodbye to Charge Beam, it's going to stay right here, floating in the air, until the end of time. Back in the previous room, we use a missile to open the red door I mentioned earlier, allowing us access to the deeper rooms of BRINSTAR. A few rooms ahead, we uncover the first missile tank that we are forced to avoid to stay true to the low percent challenge, and then immediately our first energy tank. This too would add a percentage to our collection total, which means, you guessed it, we have to complete the entire game on just 99 health as well. No consideration was made on Nintendo's part to try and make this item skippable. I mean, what kind of an idiot would do a run like this in the first place? Normally you have to pick it up in order to continue on ahead, but by tapping the A button to do a small somersault, and then immediately wall jumping against the pedestal, it's possible to gain just enough height to barely clear it without picking it up in the process, meaning we can continue on in the game with just the base 99 HP. What am I doing with my life? From the shaft at the end of this hallway, we enter the room with the Chozo statue holding bombs. While collecting this item is required to finish the game, and will unfortunately add a percentage to our collection total, bombs can be used to skip so many other upgrades throughout the remainder of the playthrough that it would be more efficient overall to pick them up than it would be to theoretically skip them anyway. Unlike Metroid Fusion, bomb jumps in Zero Mission can be chained indefinitely, meaning that with proper timing, we can use them to gain unlimited height. While this is an intended mechanic, I have a few ideas of ways we can exploit this in unintended ways as well. We use the infinite bomb jump ability to scale to the top of the long open shaft just outside the room, and open the blue door on the left for early access to the top of BRINSTAR. Continuing on ahead, we find another missile tank that we have to avoid, this time forcing us to take a bath in acid. No, this is great. I definitely don't regret this idea. The following room is the location of our first major sequence break. A hidden path in the ceiling ultimately leads to the Varia suit, but you're supposed to have both power grip and high jump in order to get it the intended way. We can, of course, use infinite bomb jumping to get there early, but unlike the other skips I've shown thus far, Nintendo went super out of their way to make this one as difficult as possible. Not only do the blocks get destroyed below us if we attempt to begin bomb jumping from above the ceiling, but crumble blocks on the left side of the room force us to begin jumping unnecessarily far to the right, making reaching the platform above much harder than it would be otherwise. In my opinion, the easiest way to pull this trick off is to start bomb jumping all the way down from the floor in the middle of the room, continue it through the breakable ceiling and up to the roof of the cave, holding left just before hitting the roof to ricochet off of the final bomb explosion to the left, rather than ever trying to chain bomb jumps diagonally like some guides recommend. Once we're on this platform, we need to bomb jump directly up through more breakable blocks, and then take the blue door to the left to enter the Varia suit room. And that was the easy part. First, we are blocked by 2 vine columns that can only be destroyed by waiting for these purple insects that eat them. Nothing in our arsenal can destroy these. Remember that for later, by the way. The next part of the room is a morph ball maze suspended over acid that is extremely easy to traverse with power grip and high jump, but almost impossible without them. We can, of course, use bombs to circumvent the lack of these 2 upgrades, but the bottom of the maze is made up of delayed crumble blocks. Not a problem when you can jump in morph ball form instantaneously by pressing A, but without that upgrade, we're forced to wait on a delayed bomb explosion to propel us back up, meaning we only have one shot to start a perfect bomb jump chain, or we're going right into the acid, which, if kills you, means you will be forced to do the first bomb jump through the breakable ceiling in the previous room all over again to even have another attempt at this one. Once we get good and manage to cross the morph ball maze without a single failed bomb jump chain, we will reach the Varia suit early, having skipped both high jump and power grip. The Varia suit is an optional upgrade, so normally would be skipped in a challenge like this, but ironically, when we collect the gravity suit at the end of the game, it will give us the Varia suit at the same time, regardless if we properly collected it or not. So yes, while collecting this item will add a percentage to our item collection total, it was one we were going to be forced to take on regardless. By collecting the Varia suit now instead of having it be granted to us later, we can take advantage of its acid immunity and bonus defense right away, something that is supremely helpful when you only have 99 health. Now we can finally make our way back down to the bottom of BRINSTAR, say hello to Charge Beam on the way, and use our bombs to blow open the path ahead leading to the entrance to NORFAIR. To proceed lower to NORFAIR, we need to go through the door to the right and into this room, which is meant to require power grip to navigate normally. We can use bomb jumping here to skip picking up the ability to grab onto ledges, but both the platforms we need to bomb jump from get destroyed by bombs, and have lava placed underneath them in an attempt to make the sequence break as difficult as possible. If you can execute 2 perfect bomb jump chains in a row, it's possible to make it to the top of the room anyway, but then when you try to leave the room through the door on the right, there will spontaneously be an indestructible vine here, with no purple insects anywhere nearby to destroy it. This vine wall was placed here to prevent continuing any further into the game with this sequence break, and is flagged to delete itself when we pick up Power Grip. This is the only situation in the entire game in which a completely arbitrary obstacle was placed in the way to force us to collect an unrelated upgrade. And it's over Power Grip, of all things. But fine, with no other means of clearing the vines, Nintendo gets their wish, and we head back the way we came to pick it up. Power Grip is found in Criteria, accessed from an elevator on the left side of NORFAIR. We can't make it very far into Criteria before being stopped by these blocks that require us to collect an unknown item. Just to get this out of the way now, there are 3 variants of this block, which each correspond to an unknown item, and these blocks are so prolific throughout the game, collecting all 3 unknown items is mandatory to finish it. There are just too many of these blocks placed in our way to skip these items. In the post-game, the 3 unknown items will become Plasma Beam, Space Jump, and Gravity Suit respectively, but until reaching that point, they only serve to clear these blocks. Like it or not, we collect Unknown Item 1, aka Plasma Beam, in order to clear the blocks and gain access to Criteria. Next we take the door to the left, drop down through the crumble blocks, and then bomb the left wall to pick up the required Power Grip, clearing the arbitrarily set vine wall in NORFAIR, and allowing us to continue in that direction. We return to that room, cross it in the intended way by simply grabbing the edges of the platforms and pulling ourselves up, and then take the door to the right, which the vine wall was previously blocking. From this tall green room, we take a door above and to the left to reach the Ice Beam, a power-up that we can technically put off collecting until the very end of the game, since it's only ever required to freeze the Metroids and TOURIAN to make them susceptible to missiles, but, much like the Varia suit, if we have to collect it at some point, I would rather get it as soon as possible and take advantage of its benefits in the meantime. Aside from the obvious ability to freeze enemies, Ice Beam also increases the base damage of our beam by 1 point, and increases the length of its reach, ever so slightly, as well. Normally, we are now meant to leave NORFAIR, return all the way back the way we came to BRINSTAR, and take the elevator down to KRAID in order to beat the boss there for the speed booster, before returning all the way back to the same room in NORFAIR to proceed lower. However, we can perform another developer-intended sequence break from the very top of this room, and skip all the way to RIDLEY right now, without the need of the speed booster at all. After destroying this single missile block and dropping down into the Morph Ball tunnel, we next bomb jump back upward until reaching the far right of the room, which leads all the way down to the bottom of NORFAIR in a single shot, skipping every single speed booster check along the way. Now that we can explore the bottom half of NORFAIR, we have the opportunity to pick up both High Jump and Wave Beam, but neither of these items are ever required at any point to finish the game, so I'll be skipping both. Perhaps most interestingly, by using the Varia suit we acquired early, it's possible to go through the superheated rooms just past the Chozo statue with High Jump, and bomb jump to the very top of it to reach this room, then break hidden missile blocks in the ceiling here to reach screw attacks way before we're supposed to, something that would be a huge damage upgrade for a player with only 5 missiles. However, it's also technically an unnecessary item that would increase our collection total, so, as per the rules, I'm forced to skip it. But do be aware that if you'd like to become as powerful as possible, screw attack is technically already obtainable by this point. If we proceed through lower NORFAIR the quote-unquote intended way, we eventually reach this superheated room with a speed booster check, something we obviously cannot cross at this point in our playthrough, but this is not required to get to RIDLEY. We can instead go left through the lowermost door at the bottom of the tall green room, and ultimately reach the fight with the Cocoon mini-boss. This fight is fairly standard, except that we are forced to farm its projectiles for missile drops more often than an average player would. Being short of missiles is going to be a recurring theme as this video continues, and the further we get into the game, the more our lack of missiles is going to become a problem. When we take out the Cocoon, it drops to the floor, uncovering a hidden path that leads to an elevator and the entrance to RIDLEY. Upon entering this region, we are immediately faced with a green door that can only be opened with super missiles, and a short path above giving us a glimpse of the fact that the Cocoon we fought earlier is in the process of hatching.
Hahaha, wow, beautiful, wow.
At this point, you are meant to take the elevator back up into NORFAIR and investigate the Cocoon to encounter a Hornet mini-boss, which ultimately rewards you with super missiles. Not only is this yet another item pickup I'd like to avoid, it's also an unnecessary boss fight. If instead we go right in Ridley, into this room that looks like a dead end, we can fire a missile into the ceiling to open an alternate path that can be reached by bomb jumping. Once again, this is a developer-intended sequence break, but going this way will allow us to skip super missiles for the entirety of the playthrough, so I will gladly make use of it. Only one room deeper, we fall through crumble blocks and come face to face with yet another block with an unknown item symbol. As mentioned earlier, all 3 unknown items are mandatory to complete Zero Mission. This block in particular seals the one and only way back out of this region, so going in, we know we will be collecting at least one new item in Ridley, no matter what. Soon enough, we reach this room with a missile tank on a pedestal in the center of the room, which, though possible, would be very difficult to jump over without accidentally picking up the missile tank in the process. Thankfully for us, it's a non-issue, because the fastest way to the boss from here is to simply drop straight down regardless. The very next room leads to Ridley himself, our first main boss of the playthrough. The following room is empty, and Ridley will not appear until you have collected the unknown item in the next room, so just in case it wasn't already required, we now have to collect it to even make the boss appear. This is technically unknown item 3, since we're here far earlier than you would be in a normal playthrough, which will become Gravity Suit once we reach the postgame. With that item collected, Ridley will appear when we return to the previous room. Oh, right. We have to beat Ridley now. Thanks to the Varia suit, we can take exactly 1 direct hit from Ridley without dying, but making only 2 mistakes will do us in. Considering how long this fight will go on with only 5 missiles, that's a lot of room for error. There is a safe spot we can stand in just between his feet, but stand slightly too far back and we'll be hit by his tail, and stand slightly too far forward and he will grab us with his claw. This results in a repetitive loop of taking a few steps forward to position ourselves between his feet, and then waiting for him to move again, over and over, to ensure that we remain precisely in the one and only location in the room where we are safe from damage. Whenever Ridley breathes fire, we can shoot the fireballs with our beam to potentially spawn missiles as they drop. The only reason this fight is even possible with just a singular missile tank. Although fighting him this way is a slow process where we are eternally only a pixel or 2 away from death, it's consistent. With very little randomness overall, we eventually take Ridley down this way, defeating our first main story boss and opening one half of the gate leading to Mother Brain. The other half of the gate is opened by defeating KRAID, the boss of the region of the same name, and our next destination. KRAID is an interesting region because it contains checks that aren't in the form of an upgrade, but a location. The game expects us to visit a specific room on the east side of the map to turn on electrical zip lines used to navigate certain rooms. Powering on the zip lines involves going to the right from the starting elevator and defeating the acid worm mini-boss, and then returning to the entrance to KRAID and going left to take a zip line through this acid-filled room. However, through the use of a small unintended exploit, we can skip all of that and complete KRAID without ever fighting the acid worm or ever powering on the zip lines. The room we need to cross contains several 2x2 breakable blocks that are supposed to be shot out of the way as we ride the zipline across, but we can take advantage of them as platforms instead and use bombs to force our way over the small gaps between them. We can continue this until reaching the end, where the final block is simply 1 tile too far away from the platform on the left side of the screen to reach by grabbing the edge with power grip. The developers anticipated what we're trying to do here, and this block placement was most definitely an intentional choice. However, they might have underestimated player ingenuity. Because we're so close to reaching the platform already, all we need is a little bit of extra horizontal distance to make up for the 1 tile gap. You might have caught on to this already, but just like we've been using bombs to pass over the gaps at the top of these blocks, some well-timed bombs placed at the very edge of the final block will let us extend our morph ball midair by 1 additional tile before we start falling. Then if we press diagonal up left as we're falling to unmorph, Samus can just barely catch the edge of this platform with power grip. Pulling this off skips ever needing to activate the electrical zip lines in KRAID, ever needing to fight the acid worm mini-boss, and ever needing to visit the right side of the region in general, making it one of the few unintended sequence breaks in Zero Mission. We soon uncover the third and final unknown item block in the game, which like the first 2, is also a required pickup here. This is unknown item 2, and will become space jump when we reach the postgame. Now with the ability to clear the obstacles blocking the way to KRAID, we can finally enter his boss room and take on our second main story boss. KRAID has significantly less health than Ridley, and also does significantly less damage, so it's a much easier fight overall, even with our limited assets. While KRAID doesn't have a true safe spot, if you stand on the very edge of the stone platform here, he will only be able to hit you with the claw projectiles he throws. We need these anyway in order to generate missile drops, so it's hardly a bad thing. When he's near death, he will destroy the stone platform we were using, and we'll have to jump from the projectile spikes he shoots from his stomach in order to reach his mouth and deal damage. But at that point, the fight is practically over already. With KRAID down, the other half of the gate to Mother Brain opens, meaning we finally have access to TOURIAN. To the left of KRAID's boss room lies the speed booster upgrade, which is obviously optional since we've already passed by all the speed booster checks in NORFAIR and RIDLEY by other means. Although you're meant to use the speed booster to break out of this boss room, the game doesn't force you to, and we can instead skip it by bomb jumping back up to the blue door at the top and leaving the same way we came in. Much like RIDLEY, there is only one route that will take us back up and out of the region. Following that path will lead us to this room on the map that we have to cross by using the zipline. Oh. Right. The Varia suit may protect us from acid, but this room has no floor, and if we ever drop into it, we will be immediately washed to the room below, which spits us back out on the right side of the map, forcing us to start over and try again. It's supposed to be impossible to reach this point in the game without activating the ziplines, so the softlock we've gotten ourselves into wouldn't even be a problem if it weren't for the acid worm skip we performed earlier. Oops. Regardless, we're here now, and need to find a way out of it. There are a ton of flying enemies in the room, which all swarm Samus when she begins riding the zipline. We might not be able to do that, but a precise jump from the edge of this platform can allow us to aggro the first enemy, which we can subsequently freeze with the ice beam to temporarily use as a platform. The problem is, these guys have a super low chance to freeze, so much so that you are more likely to kill them before you freeze them. But let's assume we have the RNG of a god and every enemy will freeze upon the first hit. Can we even make it across this way? If you can't tell, this is complete and utter hell to execute in practice. Not only do these things constantly try to knock you down into the acid, not only do they rarely freeze in the first place, not only do they stay frozen for a few seconds each, but on top of everything else, you also have to freeze them low enough in the room for Samus to fully stand on top of them, or she will be forced into Morph Ball form and unable to shoot the ice beam to continue the platform chain. I tried this for hours, and managed to get pretty good at manipulating their movements to freeze them in the places I wanted, but I always ran out of enemies before even seeing the left side of the room, much less reaching it. Maybe I understated it earlier. This zipline track is massive. Crossing the room without using it at all is an insane ask for any player. I'm not saying this is impossible necessarily, but it's certainly never been done successfully in real time. There's just way too much randomness at play here and not nearly enough enemies. So, if we can't use the zipline, can't use the enemies as platforms, and have to cross the room, how exactly are we escaping this region? Well, there is actually a third option, but it's one I was trying to avoid. If we return to KRAID's boss room and collect the speed booster, it's possible to run long enough in a straight line to charge a Shine Spark in the room below, quickly jump up one floor, and Shine Spark through the door and all the way through the room to the platform on the left side. This means that you can either skip fighting the acid worm and leave ziplines offline, or you can skip collecting the speed booster after KRAID, but not both. I still think skipping a boss is cooler than skipping an upgrade, personally, but it's true that we have now been forced to collect an otherwise unnecessary item just to escape the softlock we got ourselves into. That being said, keep watching, because by the end of this video, our specific item collection percentage may matter a lot less than you think. TOURIAN connects to the top of BRINSTAR and must be accessed by going through the item room of Longbeam, which, yep, still there. Just checking. One room above, we find the stone gate that opens upon defeat of RIDLEY and KRAID, granting us access to the TOURIAN elevator. If you aren't aware already, this is the only region in Zero Mission in which Metroids appear, and in each room, we get locked inside with them until they're all defeated. The only way to defeat one is to freeze it and quickly fire off 5 missiles before it thaws, which is the only reason Ice Beam is a required item to complete the game in the first place. Other than our short supply of missiles, TOURIAN is fairly standard procedure, that is, until reaching the boss room of Mother Brain. In order to reach Mother Brain at the end of the room, we have to pass through 4 of these red barriers known as Zebetites. While you're meant to destroy them with missiles, much like in Super Metroid, there is a way to clip through them instead. The setup in Zero Mission is to use Ice Beam to freeze a Rinka just in front of a Zebetite so that you're standing on it, then place a Morph Ball bomb mid-air, above the frozen Rinka, and then press up on the D-pad to unmorph on the same frame that the bomb detonates. This will get Samus stuck in a falling animation, and allow us to phase right through the Zebetite by simply holding left. This works because frozen enemies are programmed differently than standard platforms, and by placing our Morph Ball on a frozen enemy, then unmorphing on the same frame that a bomb detonates, the game thinks it should both bounce Samus upward, like when bomb jumping, but also that she should be falling until standing on solid ground at the same time, meaning nothing happens and she remains stuck floating in midair until we get far enough away from the frozen enemy to fall normally. Of course, all of that does make this glitch frame perfect execute, and unlike Super Metroid, skipping one Zebetite doesn't skip all of them. In Zero Mission, each Zebetite is its own independent entity, so we'll have to perform this glitch 4 times in a row in order to make it to Mother Brain this way. So, with all those stipulations, why use this glitch at all? Why not just destroy them normally with missiles like we're supposed to? Oh, I am so glad you asked. Regardless of the difficulty setting you play on, Zebetites are destroyed by firing 7 missiles at them. As you may recall, we can only hold 5 at a given time. Normally this wouldn't be a problem since we can get random missile drops from killing enemies, but unlike every other enemy in Zero Mission, Zebetites can heal. Around every second that we don't inflict damage on them, they heal back 2 missiles worth of health. Therefore, with only a maximum capacity of 5 missiles, we have to kill enemies to prepare missile drops near Samus, then rapidly fire off 5 missiles into the Zebetite, jump, collect the missile pickup, then fire off another 2 before even a half second of time can pass. This is so difficult to do in real time, the Zebetite will almost always begin healing, so in most cases we will have to prepare 2 missile drops near Samus, 1 to get us to a total of 7, and then another to make up for the amount of health the Zebetite has restored in the meantime. I'm not joking when I say that just clearing the 4 Zebetites in this room was without a doubt the hardest thing I did in this run. Hey editor, put on screen just how much time I spent in this individual room. Oh yeah, a frame perfect glitch doesn't sound so bad now, does it? After finally reaching Mother Brain, you might expect this fight to be one of the hardest in the game, but that couldn't be further from the truth. Earlier we discussed how Ridley has a safe spot between his feet, but it's constantly moving, and KRAID has a safe spot at the rightmost edge of this platform, but he destroys it during the end phase of the fight. Well, Mother Brain also has a safe spot, and hers is the most exploitable. After breaking the glass of her container, it's possible to land on the very edge and go into Morph Ball form, where nothing in the room can hit us other than the Rinka that slowly float to our location. But they also drop missiles, meaning that in their attempts to attack us, they're also bringing the ammunition refills we need so that we never have to move from this spot. After a few cycles of collecting missiles from the Rinka, and then turning to the left to inject them directly into Mother Brain's eye, she will be defeated, and TOURIAN will begin to self-destruct. We climb up the collapsing elevator shaft as usual, then proceed to the right through Criteria to reach our ship before the countdown hits 0. If you elected to kill the Acid Worm in KRAID and skip Speed Booster, you'll need to take an alternate route at the very end by doing an infinite bomb jump here to reach a gap in the cave ceiling, then drop through a crumble block in the cave wall to reach the ship, confirming that Speed Booster is indeed a completely optional upgrade. With that, we make our escape off the planet's surface just as TOURIAN detonates, but we aren't in the clear for long. When Samus removes her suit, she is attacked by space pirates, and her ship crashes back down onto the surface of the same planet, meaning we now have to find an alternate way to reach orbit without any of our weapons or armor. I won't go into great detail about this section, since if you've done it once, you've done it a million times. We just proceed linearly through the space pirate mothership without being detected, though there are a few hidden paths here or there to take advantage of that will allow you to skip particularly tricky rooms if you choose to look for them. At the end of the stealth section, we must defeat a boss in order to reclaim Samus's lost suit. Normally, this boss is not overly difficult, only needing to be shot 4 times total, but due to our extremely limited health, we can only take a single hit from it before dying. Unlike every other boss we fought thus far, this one moves and attacks completely randomly, and there is no safe spot to exploit. For that reason, I found this normally brief fight to be the most difficult boss in the run, ironically enough. Completing the Ruins test awards us with our lost abilities, as well as the 3 unknown items we collected over the course of the base game, granting us Plasma Beam, Space Jump, and Gravity Suit, but not any of the power-ups we neglected to collect over the course of the playthrough. This means we still only have 99 health, still only have 5 missiles, still don't have Long Beam or High Jump or Screw Attack, you get it. If you thought we were in the clear at this point, think again. We have yet another boss coming up and can still only take a single hit before dying, even with the Gravity Suit. In order to leave the planet and finish the game, we need to take the escape shuttle on the other side of this gate, which only opens after the defeat of Mecha Ridley, the boss of this region. In order to reach it normally, we're supposed to find and collect power bombs, the final power-up in Zero Mission. But this item too is skippable, thanks to the final developer-intended sequence break in the game. Instead of going deeper into the ship to search for power bombs, we climb to the top immediately until reaching the room with the power bomb check, just outside the Mecha Ridley boss fight. Rather than destroy the block, we can simply bomb jump through an invisible path in the ceiling to discover an alternate path that will place us just on the other side of it. As it turns out, you never need power bombs to complete the game, and seeing as they can't be used to damage Mecha Ridley, they wouldn't even give us an advantage during the boss fight. Speaking of the final boss, Mecha Ridley may look like Ridley, but it doesn't fight anything like him. The safest location in the room is crouching in the bottom left corner, but even here we can still be hit by its homing missiles, laser, and fireball attacks. Much like the other bosses in the game, we're going to need to farm missile drops mid-fight in order to have enough damage output to actually defeat the boss. Mecha Ridley's only weak point is the glowing red light on its chest, for which we have to wait to become vulnerable, and this drags out the fight a ton when we can only hold 5 missiles at a time. With no true safe spot available in the room, you simply have to memorize the boss's tells to predict when to stay crouched in the corner and when to jump out of the way. While by no means impossible, expect a decent challenge in a run like this. When Mecha Ridley falls, it will trigger a timed explosive, meaning that much like Mother Brain, we now have to evacuate under a time limit. Make sure to take note of the location of the hidden path we use to reach the boss, since without power bombs, we'll have to use it again from the opposite direction in order to escape. We quickly backtrack to the location of the escape shuttle, and stand at the top of the wall to manipulate the AI of the black space pirates who guard it for an easy kill. Samus then takes the space pirate vessel into orbit as the mothership detonates, meaning our challenge run is complete. So, I'm sure you're wondering, what was our final item total? In this game, each item pickup contributes 1% to your total. So we have 1% from picking up Morph Ball, 2 from the 1 missile tank we collected, 3 from bombs, 4 from Varia Suit, 5 from Power Grip, 6 from Ice Beam, 7, 8, and 9 from the 3 required unknown items that became Plasma Beam, Space Jump, and Gravity Suit, and finally 10 for the Speed Booster that we were forced to pick up in order to escape our accidental Softlock in KRAID. That leaves us with an item collection total of 10%. So does that mean we failed our low percent challenge? Yes. But also, so has every human being that has ever attempted this run. Here's why. The lowest theoretical collection percentage is not 9%, it's 8%, but it's only achievable through one of the most insane glitches ever theorized. If you've seen my glitch video for Metroid Fusion, you'll know that I discussed at length how the Metroid glitch hunter Biospark data mined the game and reverse engineered a method for corrupting the memory of Metroid Fusion to progress the storyline flags directly to the end of the game using power bombs, so that the final boss was already defeated and Samus could simply board her ship and leave. This involved an incredible amount of precision and timing without any substantial visual cues available. It's so difficult, it's never been done by a human being in real time. Well, he didn't just discover memory corruption in Metroid Fusion, he discovered it in Zero Mission too. By collecting power bombs from the Space Pirate Mothership, and then returning to Crateria by destroying the glass tube, it's possible to clip out of the bounds of the stage, move Samus's X and Y coordinates so far out of the map that it begins to reach the location in memory where save data is stored on the cartridge, and then drop power bombs at extremely specific intervals in order to corrupt the locations of the missile and power bomb tank counters, setting both to 0. This makes the game believe you have never collected either of those upgrades without taking away your ability to use them. This glitch reduces your item collection percentage by 2, but requires collecting power bombs in order to execute. So in total, after beating Mecha Ridley and escaping as normal, your item collection would not be 10% like mine, not be 9% like most players, it would be an otherwise impossibly low 8. And thus far, no human player has ever successfully done it on physical hardware. In fact, the category 8% doesn't even exist on speedrun.com, since there's never been a single entry that low. So, here's your call to action. Anyone watching the video could theoretically obtain a world record right now, no matter how slowly you played overall, simply by being the first person in the world to ever pull this glitch off. Biospark's memory corruption video is linked in the description below. Thanks for watching, and good luck. It sounds like you've got some practicing to do.